For 32 years, Kaden Blackwood had never heard a single sound. Not the howl of his pack. Not the clash of swords in battle. Not the whispered plots of the council members who wanted him dead. He was the Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the realm, and he ruled in absolute silence. But on this night, everything changed. The great hall was filled with wolves, council members in their ceremonial robes, warriors in battle-worn leather, and at the center of it all, a silver-haired Omega who should have been invisible. Her name was Sage, and she was holding something near his ear, a golden medallion, ancient, glowing with light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The Sun Seal, an artifact that hadn't been seen in 300 years. No one knew she had it. No one knew what it could do, until now. The light exploded. Golden fire erupted from the medallion, washing over Kaden like a wave. He staggered. His amber eyes went wide. His scarred face, the face of a king who had fought 100 battles in silence, twisted with an emotion no one had ever seen on him before. Shock. Because for the first time in 32 years, Kaden Blackwood could hear. The roar of the crowd, the crackle of torches, the gasps of disbelief, and cutting through it all, one voice. Her voice. They're going to kill you tonight. The Omega who had pulled an ancient relic from her hair had just saved the Alpha King's life. But the people who wanted him dead? They were already in the room. And now, they had a new target. The throne room of Blackwood Keep fell silent as Kaden entered. Not because he commanded silence, but because silence was the only world he had ever known. Kaden Blackwood stood 6'4", with shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of a kingdom. Battle scars crisscrossed his face, souvenirs from the wars he had won despite never hearing the enemy approach. His amber eyes, flecked with gold, missed nothing. Every twitch, every lip movement, every subtle shift in body language. Where other alphas relied on their hearing to detect threats, Kaden had learned to read the world like a book written in flesh and bone. He took his seat on the throne and faced the council. Lord Dominic Vane stepped forward first. Tall, silver-haired, a smile that never reached his cold gray eyes. "Your Majesty," Dominic said slowly, making sure Kaden could read his lips. "The council has concerns." Kaden's hands moved in fluid sign language. His interpreter, a beta named Marcus, spoke aloud. "The council always has concerns. Speak plainly, Dominic." Dominic's smile tightened. "Very well. You are 32 years old, unmated, without an heir, and the packs grow restless. The packs are fed. The borders are secure. There is no unrest. There is talk." Dominic clasped his hands behind his back. "Whispers that the Alpha King is incomplete. That the moon goddess cursed the Blackwood line. That your deafness is a sign that our kingdom has fallen from divine favor." Kaden's jaw tightened. His hands moved sharply. "I have led this kingdom for 10 years. I have won every battle. I have crushed every rebellion. My deafness has never stopped me from putting enemies in the ground." "No one doubts your strength, Your Majesty." Dominic's tone dripped with false respect. "But strength alone does not secure a dynasty. You need a mate, an heir, a son who can hear the howls of his pack." The implication hung in the air like poison. A son who isn't broken like you. Kaden rose from the throne. The council members stepped back instinctively. Even without sound, the Alpha King's presence filled the room like a storm. He walked toward Dominic until they stood face to face. Close enough that Dominic could see every scar, every battle wound, every mark of a king who had earned his crown in blood. Kaden's hands moved slowly, deliberately. I will mate when I find someone worthy, not when the council commands it. The council is not commanding, Your Majesty. We are advising for the good of the realm. Your advice is noted. Kaden turned away. This meeting is over. He walked toward the door, his boots silent on the stone floor. Dominic's voice followed him, words Kaden couldn't hear, but Marcus interpreted through quick hand signals reflected in the polished shield by the door. The mating ceremony has already been arranged. Lady Vivian Ashford of the Northern Pack. 3 weeks from tonight. Refuse, and the council will have no choice but to declare you unfit to rule. Kaden stopped, his fists clenched, but he didn't turn around. He had survived 32 years in silence. He would survive this too. Or so he thought. Kaden hated auction day. It was an ancient tradition, one that predated his grandfather's reign. Omegas without packs, without families, without protection, were brought to the capital and sold to the highest bidder. Some were claimed as mates. Most were claimed as servants. A few disappeared into fates that no one spoke about. Kaden had tried to abolish it 3 times. The council had blocked him each time. It maintains order, Dominic had argued. Without the auction, these Omegas would be rogue, dangerous. This way they are managed. Managed, like cattle, like property. Kaden stood on the balcony overlooking the courtyard, watching the procession of Omegas led onto the wooden platform. His presence wasn't required, but he came every month anyway. To bear witness, to remember what his kingdom still tolerated. 15 Omegas today. Most kept their heads down, trembling. A few wept openly. The crowd of alphas circled like vultures, calling out bids for the young ones, the pretty ones, the fertile ones. Then she was brought forward. Silver-white hair tangled and unwashed. A torn gray dress that hung off her thin frame. A leather cord around her neck with a small pouch hidden beneath the fabric. And eyes, pale blue, almost silver, that stared straight ahead with absolutely no fear. The auctioneer grabbed her arm and shoved her to the front of the platform. Lot 16, Sage, no surname, age unknown, estimated mid-20s, marked defective. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Defective. The word was a death sentence in the Omega markets. It meant damaged, barren, rebellious, unsellable. She was found in the Ashlands, the auctioneer continued. No pack markings, no family. Refused to speak during processing. The healers found old scars on her back, signs of previous discipline. He smirked. She'll need a firm hand. Opening bid, 50 silver. Silence. No one wanted a defective Omega. No one wanted to waste money on something broken. 30 silver? The auctioneer's voice grew desperate. 20? Come now, she's still young. Still useful for labor, if nothing else. More silence. Sage stood perfectly still. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She simply waited, like a woman who had already accepted whatever darkness was coming. Something twisted in Kaden's chest. He didn't understand it, didn't want to examine it. But when he saw the guards reach for her, ready to drag her away to whatever fate awaited unsold Omegas, his hands moved before he could stop them. Marcus's voice rang out across the courtyard. The Alpha King bids 100 gold. Every head turned toward the balcony. The auctioneer's mouth fell open. 100 gold was more than some alphas earned in a year. For a defective Omega, worth less than 50 silver. Sage's eyes found Kaden's. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. The Alpha King who couldn't hear. The Omega who wouldn't speak. two broken creatures in a world that despised imperfection. Kaden didn't know why he had claimed her. Pity, perhaps, or something deeper that he couldn't name. But as Sage was led away toward the palace, she glanced back at him one more time. And Kaden felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Sage learned the rhythm of invisibility within her first week. Wake before dawn. Haul water from the well. Scrub the pots the night cooks left crusted with grease. Peel vegetables until her fingers cracked. Mop floors that would be dirty again within the hour. The kitchen staff ignored her. The guards looked through her. The nobles, who occasionally wandered downstairs for a late-night snack, never registered her existence at all. Invisible, forgettable, safe. That was how Sage survived. That was how she had always survived. But invisibility had its advantages. People spoke freely around ghosts. "The northern pack arrives tomorrow," one cook whispered to another as Sage scrubbed a cauldron nearby. "Lady Vivian's entourage. 40 wolves, I heard, all here for the mating ceremony. Poor king, shackled to that ice queen for the rest of his days. Better her than no one. The council's been pushing for years. They say if he doesn't produce an heir soon—" "Shh." The cook nodded toward Sage. "Little ears." They moved away, lowering their voices. But Sage had heard enough. She heard everything in this kitchen. The maids gossiping about which lords were bedding, which servants. The guards complaining about extra patrols. And 3 nights ago, a conversation that had frozen her blood. 2 men in council robes, thinking they were alone in the wine cellar. The ceremony is the perfect opportunity. Chaos, crowds. No one will question an accident. And the northern pack takes the blame? War between the packs. Dominic seizes control as regent. Everyone wins. Except the king. Laughter, cold, cruel. The deaf king was never meant to rule. We're simply correcting the moon goddess's mistake. Sage had pressed herself against the cellar wall, heart pounding, hand instinctively clutching the leather pouch beneath her dress. The pouch she had carried since childhood. The pouch her dying mother had pressed into her hands with desperate, trembling fingers. Never let them see it. Never let them take it. When the time comes, you'll know. Sage didn't know what it meant. Didn't understand what the golden medallion inside was or why it hummed with warmth against her skin. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Alpha King was going to die. And she might be the only person who could stop it. Sage was sorting dried rosemary when the old woman cornered her. "Show me what's in the pouch." Sage spun around. Her hand flew to her chest, clutching the leather cord beneath her dress. The woman was ancient, 70 at least, with iron-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes the color of storm clouds. She wore the same rough-spun uniform as the other kitchen workers, but something about her bearing was different. Sharper, like a blade disguised as a butter knife. "I don't know what you're talking about," Sage said quietly. "Don't lie to me, child. I've been watching you since you arrived." The old woman stepped closer. "The way you guard that pouch, the way it glows at night when you think no one's looking. I know what you carry." Sage's blood went cold. "Who are you?" "My name is Miriam, Elder Miriam, once upon a time, before Lord Dominic had me banished to the kitchens for asking too many questions." She smiled grimly. 30 years I served as the palace healer. 30 years I studied the old texts, and in all that time, I only saw that symbol once. She reached out and, before Sage could stop her, pulled the leather pouch free from beneath her collar. The golden medallion caught the candlelight. The sun symbol at its center seemed to pulse with inner fire. Miriam's breath caught. "Moon above, it's real." "What is it?" Sage's voice trembled. "My mother gave it to me before she died. She never told me what it was." "Because she was protecting you." Miriam's storm-gray eyes met hers. "This is the sun's seal, forged by the moon priestesses 300 years ago. It was created for one purpose, to heal the broken king." "The broken king? A prophecy, ancient, nearly forgotten." Miriam lowered her voice to barely a whisper. "When the throne sits a king incomplete, and darkness gathers at his feet, the last daughter of the moon shall rise, and through her touch, he'll hear the skies." Sage shook her head. "That doesn't make sense. I'm nobody. I'm an orphan from the Ashlands. I'm not—" "You're the last of them." Miriam gripped her arm. "The last moon priestess. And that medallion only works for one person." Her eyes burned with intensity. "His true mate." Sage's world tilted. "The king is going to die," she whispered. "I heard them planning it. The council." "I know." Miriam's face hardened. "Which is why you need to decide, child. Stay invisible and let him die. Or become what you were born to be and save him." The palace had transformed into a glittering prison. Banners of black and silver, Blackwood colors, hung from every pillar. Torches blazed along the corridors. Wolves from 6 different packs filled the great hall, dressed in their finest leathers and silks, drinking wine and pretending not to watch each other like enemies. And at the center of it all, Lady Vivian Ashford waited at the altar. She was beautiful, Sage had to admit that, tall and elegant, with raven black hair and eyes like chips of green ice. The perfect alpha female, the perfect political match, the perfect solution to the council's problem. Sage watched from the servants' corridor, hidden behind a stone pillar. Her hand clutched the sun seal beneath her dress so tightly that the edges bit into her palm. 2 hours until midnight, 2 hours until the ceremony, 2 hours until Kaden Blackwood died. She had to warn him. But how? Omegas were forbidden from the royal wing. Forbidden from speaking to the king without invitation. Forbidden from existing as anything more than shadows in the corners of noble lives. Sage slipped through the servants' passages, moving toward the king's private chambers. If she could just reach him before the ceremony— "Halt!" 2 guards blocked the corridor. Massive, armed, wearing the council's crimson sashes. "No servants beyond this point," the larger one said. "King's orders. I need to speak with His Majesty. It's urgent." The guards exchanged smirks. "Urgent?" The smaller one laughed. "Let me guess. You've fallen in love with the deaf king, and you've come to confess? Save yourself the embarrassment, little Omega. He's about to mate a real alpha, not a kitchen rat." Sage's jaw tightened. "There's a plot against his life. The council is planning to—" "Enough." The larger guard stepped forward, his hand falling to his sword. "One more word, and I drag you to the dungeons for spreading sedition. Now get back to the kitchens where you belong." Sage didn't move. The guard's eyes narrowed. "I said, let her pass." The voice came from behind her. Sage turned. Elder Miriam stood in the corridor, her weathered face carved from stone. But she wasn't dressed as a kitchen servant anymore. She wore healer's robes, old, faded, but unmistakable. "This Omega is under my care," Miriam continued. "I'm escorting her to the healing chambers." "Elder Miriam?" The larger guard's confidence wavered. You're not supposed to. I'm not supposed to do many things. Miriam walked past them, pulling Sage by the arm. Report me to Lord Dominic if you wish. But by the time he responds, we'll be long gone. She swept through the corridor, Sage stumbling to keep up. That won't hold them for long, Sage whispered. They'll alert the council. I know. Miriam's voice was grim. Which is why we're not going to the healing chambers. Then where? Miriam stopped at a narrow staircase hidden behind a tapestry. Ancient, cobwebbed, forgotten. The ceremony hall. There's a passage that leads directly behind the altar. She gripped Sage's shoulders. When the moment comes, you'll know what to do. And if I'm wrong? If the medallion doesn't work? Miriam's eyes softened. Then we both die as traitors. But at least we die trying. The staircase spiraled downward into darkness. Sage followed Miriam by touch alone, one hand on the damp stone wall, the other clutching the sun's seal against her heart. They emerged into a narrow corridor lit by a single torch. Through the cracks in the wall, Sage could hear the murmur of the crowd. The ceremony hall was just beyond. Wait! Miriam grabbed her arm. Before you go in there, you need to understand what you're about to do. I know what I'm doing. I'm warning the king. You're not just warning him. Miriam's grip tightened. The sun seal doesn't work like a tool. It's not a weapon you can simply use. It responds to one thing only. Her storm gray eyes bore into Sage's. The mate bond. Sage's breath caught. What? The prophecy isn't just about healing the broken king. It's about completing him. The sun seal was forged from moonfire and blood, the blood of the first moon priestess who was mated to the first alpha king. It carries that bond across generations, across centuries. You're saying... I'm saying it will only work if you are his true mate. Miriam's voice dropped to a whisper. And if it works, if that medallion ignites, every wolf in that room will know what you are. The last moon priestess, the king's fated mate, the one person standing between Dominic and the throne. Sage felt the world tilt beneath her feet. They'll kill me. They'll try. Miriam released her arm. But if you don't walk into that hall, they'll kill him instead. And the sun seal will die with you. The last hope for the Blackwood line, extinguished forever. Through the wall, Sage heard a horn blow. The ceremony was beginning. She thought of Kaden, the king who bid 100 gold for a worthless Omega. The king who couldn't hear the plots whispered behind his back. The king who had looked at her, really looked at her, like she was something more than invisible. Sage pulled the sun seal from beneath her dress. How? Do I get in? Miriam smiled grimly and pushed open the hidden door. You walk straight toward him, and you don't stop for anyone. The ceremony hall blazed with torchlight. 300 wolves filled the space. Alphas, betas, omegas, from every major pack in the realm. They stood in perfect rows, their eyes fixed on the raised altar, where Kaden Blackwood waited in ceremonial armor, his scarred face unreadable. Lady Vivian stood beside him, draped in white silk and northern pack silver. Beautiful, cold. A political solution wrapped in elegant packaging. Lord Dominic Vane presided over the altar, his silver hair gleaming, his gray eyes bright with barely concealed triumph. We gather tonight to witness a sacred union, Dominic announced, his voice carrying across the hall. The joining of the Blackwood and Ashford bloodlines, a union that will strengthen our kingdom and secure the future of our people. He turned to Kaden. Alpha King, do you accept this female as your mate? To bond with her under the eyes of the moon goddess, from this night until your last?" Kaden's interpreter, Marcus, signed the words. Kaden watched, his amber eyes flat, empty, the eyes of a man signing his own death warrant. His hands moved. The hidden door exploded open. Sage burst into the hall like a silver storm. Her white hair flew wild behind her. Her kitchen uniform was torn and dirty, and in her raised hand, the sun's seal caught the torchlight and blazed like a fallen star. "Stop this ceremony!" 300 heads turned. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Guards surged forward, drawing swords. Dominic's face twisted with fury. "Seize her! She's a rogue Omega! She's lost her mind!" 2 guards grabbed Sage's arms. She thrashed against them, her eyes locked on Kaden. "Your Majesty! They're going to kill you! The Council! Dominic! It's a trap!" But Kaden couldn't hear her. He saw her lips moving, saw the desperation on her face, saw the guards dragging her backward as she fought, like a wild thing. But the words were lost to him, swallowed by the silence that had imprisoned him since birth. "Remove her," Dominic commanded smoothly. "The poor creature is clearly deranged. Perhaps too much time in the kitchens has—" Sage stopped struggling. In that moment, everything Elder Miriam had told her crystallized into absolute clarity. The prophecy, the mate bond, the truth she had been running from her entire life. She couldn't reach him with words, but she could reach him with this. Sage tore free from the guards with a strength that surprised even her. She sprinted toward the altar. 5 steps, 10 steps. Guards shouting behind her, swords singing free of scabbards. Kaden's eyes widened. His hand shot up, stopping the guards mid-stride. Sage reached him. She grabbed his arm, felt the shock of contact, the strange electricity that raced through her blood, and lifted the sun seal to his ear. "Please," she whispered, even though he couldn't hear. "Please work. Please." The medallion touched his skin, and the world exploded in golden light. The sun seal erupted with power, ancient, overwhelming, alive. Golden fire poured from the medallion, wrapping around Kaden like a cocoon of pure moonlight. The symbols on its surface blazed so bright that wolves shielded their eyes, crying out in shock. Kaden staggered. His hands flew to his ears, his face contorted, not in pain, but in something far more profound. Something that looked like a man drowning in reverse, finally breaking the surface after 32 years underwater. Sound crashed into him like a tidal wave, the roar of the crowd, the crackle of torches, the rasp of his own breathing, a symphony of noise so overwhelming that tears streamed down his scarred face. And cutting through it all, one voice, her voice, the first voice he had ever heard. "They're going to kill you tonight. The Council, Dominic, it's all a trap." Kaden's amber eyes found Sage's. For the first time in his life, he heard another person speak, and she was telling him he was about to die. He reached up slowly and touched her face. His fingers trembled against her cheek. "I can hear you." His voice cracked, rough, unused to being heard even by himself. I can hear." Sage's eyes filled with tears. "Your Majesty! Guards!" Dominic's scream shattered the moment. "Kill them both! Now!" The guards hesitated. 300 wolves stood frozen, staring at the impossible miracle they had just witnessed. Their deaf king, the broken king they had whispered about for 32 years, was standing at the altar with tears streaming down his face and wonder in his eyes. And Lord Dominic Vane had just ordered his death. "I said kill them!" Dominic drew his own sword. "The Omega has bewitched the king. She's using dark magic. Can't you see?" 4 council guards broke from their shock and charged the altar. Kaden moved. 32 years of fighting in silence had made him deadly. But fighting with sound, hearing the whistle of a blade, the grunt of an attacker, the scrape of boots on stone, was something else entirely. It was like being reborn. The first guard swung high. Kaden heard the arc of the blade before he saw it. He ducked, grabbed the man's arm, and snapped it at the elbow. The guard screamed, and Kaden heard that too, the sound of his enemy's pain. The second guard thrust low. Kaden sidestepped, ripped the sword from the man's grip, and drove the pommel into his temple. He crumpled. The third and fourth came together. Kaden parried one blade, kicked the other guard in the chest, and spun with a grace he had never possessed before. 2 more bodies hit the floor. 4 guards. 4 seconds. Kaden turned to face Dominic, his borrowed sword dripping crimson. "You want to kill me yourself?" Kaden's voice was raw, strange to his own ears. "Come, try." Dominic's face had gone pale, but he was too far committed to retreat now. "You've all seen it." He spun to address the crowd. "The king has been corrupted. That Omega used forbidden magic to—" "Forbidden magic?" Sage stepped forward. The sun seal still blazed in her hand, pulsing with golden light. "This medallion was forged by the moon priestesses. It only works for one purpose." "Lies! She's a rogue, a nobody." "It only works," Sage continued, her voice growing stronger, "for the king's true mate." Silence crashed through the hall. Lady Vivian stepped back from the altar, her green eyes wide. The implications were clear to everyone. If the sun seal had healed Kaden, if it had responded to Sage's touch, then the political marriage was meaningless. The fated bond had already been decided. "That proves nothing," Dominic snarled. "Convenient stories from a kitchen rat. Where's your evidence of this supposed conspiracy?" The sun seal flared brighter. Sage gasped. The medallion was growing hot in her hand, not painfully, but insistently, like it wanted something from her. "Show them." A voice whispered in her mind. Elder Miriam's voice, though the old woman was nowhere to be seen. "The seal holds memory. Show them the truth." Sage didn't understand how, but she closed her eyes and thought of the wine cellar. The 2 men in council robes, the words she had overheard. The sun seal erupted. Golden light shot toward the ceiling and spread like a dome over the entire hall. And within that light, images formed. Sounds echoed. 2 men in council robes, standing in the wine cellar. "The ceremony is the perfect opportunity. Chaos, crowds, no one will question an accident. And the Northern Pack takes the blame? War between the packs. Dominic seizes control as regent. Everyone wins. Except the king." Laughter, cold, cruel. "The deaf king was never meant to rule. We're simply correcting the moon goddess's mistake." The images shifted. More conversations, more plots. Dominic meeting with assassins in shadowed corridors. Gold changing hands. Poison being prepared. A dozen council members complicit in treason. Every secret, every whisper, every betrayal, projected in light and sound for 300 wolves to witness. Gerald Morrison, one of Dominic's conspirators, tried to run. Warriors from the Blackwood pack seized him before he reached the door. Victor Crane drew a hidden dagger and lunged at Sage. Kaden intercepted him, driving his sword through the man's shoulder and pinning him to a wooden pillar. Howard Bell fell to his knees, weeping. "I didn't want to! Dominic forced me! He said he'd kill my family!" But all eyes were on Dominic Vane. The silver-haired lord stood alone at the altar, surrounded by the damning evidence of his own treachery. His sword trembled in his grip. This is a trick, he whispered. An illusion. You can't prove? I don't need to prove anything. Kaden walked toward him slowly. 300 witnesses just heard your confession from your own lips. He stopped an arm's length from Dominic. You called me the Deaf King. The Broken King. You said the moon goddess made a mistake. Kaden raised his sword. But I'm not the one who's broken, Dominic. He smiled coldly. And I'm not deaf anymore. Dominic lunged. It was the desperate attack of a cornered animal, wild, graceless, fueled by nothing but survival instinct. His blade arced toward Kaden's throat with all the strength of a man who knew he was already dead. Kaden heard it coming, the whistle of steel through air, the grunt of exertion, the subtle shift of weight on stone. Sounds he had never known existed, now painting a picture more vivid than sight alone. He sidestepped, caught Dominic's wrist, twisted. The sword clattered to the floor. Kaden drove his knee into Dominic's stomach, doubling him over, then grabbed a fistful of silver hair and forced the lord to his knees. 32 years. Kaden's voice echoed through the silent hall. 32 years you sat on my council, ate at my table, called me your majesty while plotting my death. I was doing what was necessary. Dominic spat blood onto the stone. You were never fit to rule. A deaf king? A broken alpha who couldn't even hear his own pack howl? The realm deserved better. The realm deserved loyalty. Kaden released him with a shove that sent Dominic sprawling. Instead, it got you. He turned to his warriors. Take him. Take all of them. Everyone whose face appeared in that light, every conspirator, every traitor, every wolf who sold their honor for Dominic's gold. His amber eyes swept the hall. They will face judgment at dawn. Warriors moved through the crowd like wolves culling a herd. One by one, the conspirators were seized, some fighting, some weeping, some simply standing in numb disbelief as chains were clamped around their wrists. Gerald Morrison screamed curses as he was dragged toward the door. Victor Crane had to be carried, still pinned through the shoulder. Howard Bell went quietly, his face gray with shame. And Dominic Vane, Lord Dominic Vane, who had spent 20 years building his web of treachery, was hauled to his feet by 2 Blackwood guards. This isn't over, he hissed at Kaden. Kill me if you want, but there are others. Others who know the truth about your bloodline. Others who will finish what I started. Then I'll finish them too. Kaden stepped close, his voice dropping to a whisper that only Dominic could hear. But you won't be alive to see it. He nodded to the guards. Take him to the dungeons. Solitary. No visitors. No food until I decide his fate. Dominic was dragged away, still screaming threats that faded into echoes. The hall fell silent. 300 wolves stared at their king, the king they had pitied, doubted, whispered about for 3 decades, the king who now stood before them whole, complete, hearing every breath, every heartbeat, every shuffle of nervous feet. Kaden turned to face Lady Vivian. She hadn't moved from the altar. Her beautiful face was pale, her green eyes wide with shock. The white silk of her ceremonial dress seemed to glow in the torchlight. A bride without a groom, a political piece swept off the board. Lady Vivian? She flinched at his voice. Your Majesty, I didn't know. I swear to you, I had no part in Dominic's plot. My father arranged this union. I was told it was for the good of both packs. I believe you. She blinked. You do? Kaden studied her for a long moment. He could hear her heartbeat now, rapid, frightened, but steady. the heartbeat of a woman telling the truth. "You are a pawn," he said. "Dominic needed this ceremony to create chaos. He needed the Northern Pack present so he could blame them for my death. You were never meant to be my mate. You were meant to be his scapegoat." Vivian's composure cracked. Tears spilled down her porcelain cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have—" "You couldn't have known." Kaden's voice softened. "Go home to your pack, Lady Vivian. Tell your father what happened here. Tell him the Blackwood Alliance still stands, but it will be built on truth, not political games." Vivian sank to her knees, not in defeat, but in genuine respect. "You are not the king they said you were," she whispered. "You are so much more." She rose, gathered her entourage with a gesture, and walked toward the great doors. At the threshold, she paused and looked back, not at Kaden, but at Sage. "Take care of him," Vivian said quietly. "He deserves someone who sees him clearly." Then she was gone. The hall remained frozen, 300 wolves waiting. Kaden turned slowly until his eyes found Sage. She stood alone near the altar, the sun seal still glowing softly in her hand. Her silver hair was wild. Her kitchen uniform was torn. She looked nothing like a queen. But when Kaden looked at her, he saw everything. "You," he said, his voice carrying across the silence. "Come here." Sage's legs trembled as she walked toward the altar. Every eye in the hall followed her. The kitchen rat, the defective Omega, the woman who had just shattered a conspiracy and healed a king with nothing but a golden medallion and blind faith. She stopped before Kaden. Up close, she could see the tear tracks still drying on his scarred face. Could see the wonder in his amber eyes, the look of a man experiencing the world for the first time. "You saved my life," he said softly. "I did what anyone would have done." "No." Kaden shook his head. "No one else came. No one else saw. For 32 years, I've been surrounded by wolves who called themselves loyal, and not one of them ever fought for me like you did tonight." Sage's eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. "I'm nobody, Your Majesty. I'm an orphan from the Ashlands. I've been sold, beaten, starved, and forgotten. I don't even know my real family name." "Then tell me what you do know." Kaden stepped closer. "Tell me who you are, Sage. The truth." The sun seal pulsed warmly against her palm, encouraging her, guiding her. So she told him. She told him about her mother, a wanderer with silver hair who spoke of ancient bloodlines and sacred duties. She told him about the night her mother died, pressing the medallion into her hands with desperate, trembling fingers. She told him about the years of running, hiding, surviving, the auction blocks, the cruel masters, the slow erasure of everything she had once been. "I didn't know what I carried," Sage whispered. "I didn't know what I was. I thought I was broken beyond repair." Kaden reached out and lifted her chin with gentle fingers. "You're not broken," he said. "You're the only complete thing I've ever found." He reached for the iron collar around her neck, the mark of an owned Omega, the symbol of her servitude, and tore it free. The metal clattered to the floor, ringing like a bell in the silent hall. "No more chains," Kaden said. "No more hiding. No more being invisible." He took her hand and turned to face the 300 wolves who watched in breathless silence. "This woman is Sage of the Moon Priestess bloodline. She carried the sun seal across years of suffering to reach this moment. She saved my life. She restored my hearing, and the medallion confirmed what my heart already knew." His voice rose, echoing off the ancient stones. She is my true mate, my fated bond, my queen. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Kaden turned back to Sage, his amber eyes that could finally witness the world in its fullness, shone with something she had never seen directed at her before. Love. I spent 32 years in silence, he said softly, and the first voice I ever heard was yours. That's not coincidence, Sage. That's fate. He cupped her face in his hands. Will you accept me? Not as your king, not as your alpha, but as your mate? Sage looked at this man, this scarred, powerful, wounded man who had shown her kindness when no one else would, who had paid 100 gold for a worthless Omega, who was now offering her everything she had never dared to dream. Yes, she whispered. Kaden kissed her, and as their lips met, the mate bond snapped into place, a golden thread connecting their souls, blazing through them both like sunrise after an endless night. The sun's seal flared one final time, then dimmed to a gentle glow. It had fulfilled its purpose. The broken king was whole, and the invisible Omega had finally been seen. They called him broken. They called her worthless. The king who couldn't hear, and the Omega nobody wanted, written off by a world that only valued perfection. But the moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. She makes miracles. She takes the shattered and makes them whole. She takes the forgotten and gives them thrones. She takes two broken people and forges them into something unbreakable. Because sometimes the one destined to save you is the one everyone else overlooked. And sometimes healing doesn't come from medicine or magic. It comes from being loved by someone who sees your soul. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications. Because every week we share stories like this. Stories about second chances, underdogs, and the extraordinary power of love. Don't miss the next one, because the next miracle might be yours.